1, 2, 3.
Take me back when times were hard, but we didn't know it. If we ate, we had to grow it. Take me back when all we could afford was laughter and 2 mules instead of a tractor. Take me back again.
There was a hired man working at our ranch, which is about 8 miles south of Maple Creek. We rode up here, and that was quite a thing for me. I was probably 10, and he kept worrying that I was going to go to sleep and fall off the horse on the way back. It was a big day.
Sounds like it. Tell me how old you are now.
I'm 80.
Take me back when we had swollen fingers we got, when everybody helped pick the cotton. Take me back again.
So I was born there, in that house. I was number 9 kids from out of a family of 10.
Take me back to precious things that my heart carries. Take me back when Daddy led the singing on Sunday. Nobody had to plow until Monday. Take me back when I could feel the kiss of my mother. I had all my sisters and brothers. Take me back again.
Hello, my name is Murraydale. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce Connie Martin's visual history of the Murraydale Rodeo. Now, I wasn't named after the Murraydale Rodeo, nor was it named after me. I just happened to stumble upon it as it began its 2nd century. Imagine, more than 100 years, continuously. That's longer than the Calgary Stampede. In the early days, folks came from their homesteads, farms, ranches, and small communities all over southwestern Saskatchewan to celebrate rodeo, family, community, or perhaps they were just looking for an excuse to get together with their friends and neighbors for a picnic. The idea worked in 1909, and it's still working today. I'm pleased to say that every nickel from the sale of this DVD goes into the bank account of the Murraydale Rodeo and Picnic Society. With your help, this marvelous event, it's actually a Saskatchewan institution, will not only just continue, but with new volunteers and their new ideas, it will flourish. The Murraydale Rodeo would not have been the success that it is without a lot of work from a great many people. You'll see some of their names at the end of the show. And now, here's Connie Martin, volunteer, historian, and also the Secretary-Treasurer of the Murraydale Rodeo and Picnic Society.
Thank you to Murray for sharing his interest and his name on a subject near and dear to my heart. I'd also like to thank several individuals for helping make this possible. The first one being Royce, whose many excellent presentations in the past have encouraged me to think I might be able to do something like it. Royce is an integral part of our local museum, that being the Old Timers Museum in Maple Creek. Another great big thanks goes to Jenny Wise, my niece, who tutored me in PowerPoint and edited my slides to look like someone knows what's going on. Naturally, a big thank you goes to the many people who contributed photos and stories. I've tried to include all the aspects of Murraydale, but I apologize for what I miss, and I hope I haven't misidentified many people. The Murraydale Stampede and Picnic Society celebrated its 100th annual performance, with the first one being held in 1909 and the 100th held in 2008. All roads lead to Murraydale. It has a central location for several communities in the area. Maple Creek, Piapot, Tompkins, Consell, Robsart, Ravenscraig, and East End. Many of the turns on the gravel roads are marked with tires. I don't know when these tires were originally put up, but they've been there as long as I can remember. They are maintained by Mabel Hobbs these days. I don't know the picturesque directions from other communities, but from Maple Creek, you can take the Bryson Trail, go through Dead Steer Coulee, and up Chicken Hill until you turn east again, or you can just follow the dust. Murraydale began as a picnic held at Mr. Walter's place in 1909 and 1910. In 1911, it was held at Joe Nicholson's place, and in 1912, it was held at its present location.
My dad,
Your dad
yeah,
started the first one in 1909.
him and the rest of the neighbors, he said, let's get together and have a picnic. And that's what they did. And it was always the second Sunday in July, but then later years they changed it to the second, no, it was always the second Wednesday in July. And then they changed it to the second Sunday because then more people could come. And so that's the way it got
So
started.
I want to know how old you are and how many rodeos you've attended.
I was born in 1930,
Okay. And
but Dad homesteaded here in 1903. And they came back permanently in 1909, him and three brothers. And they bought a section of land, a quarter each, for $5 a quarter. So that's the Eddie field, and this is George's field, and that's Billy's field, that's Dalton's field over there.
This ideal spot was owned by a few people until 1931, when the 50 acres was purchased from Mrs. Ben Cheeseman by the Society. The community members organized the annual event by tendering out the booths and contracting people to provide a rodeo. In 1966, the Murraydale Stampede and Picnic Society was registered as a benevolent society, and in 1971 this plaque was commissioned to place on a rock cairn that stands at Murraydale. Many of the members on this plaque have descendants that are volunteering or participating in the production today. This is a photo of Ernest Murray, son of John A. Murray, originally from Ontario. He ran a store at Murraydale and was instrumental in the organization of Murray's School. The caption on the side of the photo says, Davis Creek, Saskatchewan, 1912. The Murrays left the district in 1913 for Maple Creek and eventually Ontario. This is Myrtle Moorhead's father, one of the men instrumental in Murraydale's development. For years, he was responsible for the fruit booth. Myrtle was very helpful in providing this presentation with her stories and amazing collection of newspaper articles, programs, and photos. She has made a book for each of her children, she has 6, filled with Murraydale information, and it's all in chronological order. Myrtle said in her younger years she only missed one Murraydale, and that was the year Alan was born. Bertha and Chester Ambrose were also part of the first Murraydale. When the community decided to organize, they elected Chester as their first president. In 1931, the current property was purchased from Mrs. Cheeseman for $4 an acre, but an organization was unable to own property, so Mr. Ambrose had it put in his name. In 1966, the Murraydale Stampede and Picnic Society was registered as a benevolent society, and the title was transferred to the organization. Their oldest daughter is Marge Boyer, who was also very helpful in sharing her photos and newspaper articles with me. I'd like to now take you on a visit to Murraydale, first exploring the picnic grounds and booth. Then we'll have a look at some of the races, the powwows, and finally the rodeo action. This photo was given to me by both Marge and Myrtle. It was taken in 1926 and is full of Ambroses, Coles, Sweetings, Armbrusters, and Perrins. Marge identified this individual as Jack Paxton, one of their hired men. She said he was a good worker, but he used to catch mice and chase her around with them. A beautiful photo of Jack Ambrose with the flowers. Isa Ambrose, Bertha Brown Ambrose, and Chester Ambrose. Marge thought the other lady in the photo, this one back here, might be Renee Perrin, who is Roy's sister, and she didn't know the other two men. This idyllic photo came from Florence Sandow, found in her mother's collection. My brother Barry, an artist himself, remarked on its Renoir settings. And these two individuals here are my grandparents. This is the minute book with minutes from 1936. Members of the community would tender the various booths needed to have a successful day. This shows the tenders for booths available. They were for number 1, the ice cream and lemonade booth. Number 2, fruit, candy and tobacco booth. Number 3 was the pot booth. 4, hot dog stand and lunch counter. And 5 was the Bowery dance. The opposite page shows some of the committee members responsible for events. There's the kids race committee and restrooms for the ladies committee on this page. Other members were in charge of water hauling, powwow, gambling games, and the boiling water booth. A photo of myrtles, most likely taken by Jim Cole. It shows one of the booths set up on the hillside. This photo surfaced recently and is of another booth, I'm not sure what kind. When we were up at Murraydale preparing the grounds and making repairs for the 100th, I ran across what I think are the remnants of this booth. If I had known I would get this photo, I would have taken a photo that evening. This photo isn't actually at the grounds, as there isn't that large body of water near there. I included it from Myrtle's collection as it was taken in the Murraydale area, and it shows men cutting ice in the winter to use in the summer. Ice cream is often mentioned in Murraydale accounts, so it was obviously a treat, and some people went to great lengths to provide it, even going so far as to hook up engines to crank the formerly hand-cranked machines. George Doonan and friends, or perhaps relatives. I think he is standing just down from the main food booth. In 1992, the booth was still in operation at the old site. This was in Myrtle's book. This photo shows Chris Moorhead, her granddaughter, working in the booth. And in 1992, ice cream was still popular. This is Keegan Martin. These next few photos are courtesy of Myrtle and taken by her father or mother. They show the grounds and some faces that you might recognize. You can see the cars lined up along the racetrack. The following ad was in the paper, I think. It was in Myrtle's book dated 1930. It goes like this. The committee in charge of the Murraydale Stampede invites you to spend the day with them on Wednesday, July 10th. They have arranged a splendid program and arena and track events to give you the kind of good time you expect at Murraydale after 21 years. Bowery dance on grounds. Reserve your car space with a ticket. Number from George Weber. So not only did you have to reserve the space, you had to pay for it, as records show that it was a source of income. This photo was taken in 1934, and you can see that there's the start of having some corrals to contain the rodeo stock. Jack McDougall told me his family liked to come to Murraydale in the 1930s just to see some green. I found this in the Jasper Centre. And Rosemary and Carol have identified them as Nora, Dale, and Lois Udall. Obviously, they had ridden to Murraydale to watch the rodeo. Helen Gilchrist brought me an envelope of photos. This is her in 1952, squeezed into the crowd. This one is from Myrtle. I'm not sure when this one was, but the cars should date it to at least within a decade. Notice the animal in the pen at the side. After presenting this in May last year, Elsa Galbraith said one year they had a yearling bull at the Stampede for people to guess the weight. She'd forgotten all about it until I pointed out the animal in the pen. This photo from 1953 shows the Ferris wheel on the grounds. It's right there. I don't know how many years they had one, but the minutes from 1953 show that they made $90 from the Midway. Another Ferris wheel photo. This is looking down the track from the booth in 1956. The races were always popular at Murraydale. As well as foot races for children of all ages, sexes, and nationalities, there were horse races. This was one in 1926, and the photo came from Murraydale. And it looks like they had a little bit of speed involved. Another race. I'm not sure of the date of this photo. There's no date on this fantastic photo from Marge. They appear to be getting ready for a race. I would guess the relay race, as there are a number of unsaddled horses. I just love the pants on the spectators. And they should date the photo. I originally received this photo from Marge, but it showed up again in photos taken by Jim Cole. This one was dated 1926. These two have been identified as George Doonan and Tom Kenny.
Well, my brothers used to ride, and Dad used to, I think Dad started the first wagon race here against the Indian boys, and that used to be very famous, the Indian wagon race. So.
Tom Kenny had the mail route from Maple Creek to Murraydale to Robsart. The Ravenscraig history book quotes, "He accomplished the seemingly impossible through almost impassable drifts and weather." Some of his horses provided the mounts for the broncs at Murraydale. At the Murraydale evening held earlier, this story was related. Apparently Tom had a little dog he quite liked. He trained his dog to sit on his saddled horse and smoke a cigarette. When he was ill, he had to go to the hospital. He wanted to take his dog with him. When informed he couldn't do that, he told the nurses, "Well, why not? The dog's cleaner than I am." The Ravenscraig history book speaks of a 16-mile race held in 1946 put on by Jake Armstrong. George and Elsie Galbraith shared this photo taken by Ken Galbraith, and they thought it was of a long race held at Murraydale. So I summarized it was the 16-mile race. It is taken during one of the laps. They made several through the countryside because they still have their hats on and they look fairly fresh. Compared to this photo, which shows a hatless rider and tired horses. So if my deductions are correct, then this is Cliff Whitney with Jake Armstrong coming in second. Here's some chariot racing with Jack Ziegler and Neil Newby. I didn't know I had these photos until I went through my own photo albums. This is in 1989 when they held a suicide race in memory of Neil Newby. I was on top of a horse trailer to watch the race. So down here is Stan Perrin standing in the arena with his shotgun preparing to start the race. So you can see the riders coming down the hill past the cars, and they have to make a sharp turn to get onto the track. At this point, Chuck Yershenko is in the lead with Wade Wise coming in second. My brother Barry was on the ground taking photos at the same race, so you can see them coming down the back stretch. They've come down the hill, gone all the way around the track, and are coming down the back stretch. Here is Chuck winning the race. Chuck's winning the race, and this is the cairn that I mentioned that has the plaque on it. That's the only photo I could find of it. The caption on the back of this says that Wade is coming in third, so Wade has been passed by Dale Mosquito. And when I talked to Wade about it, he remembers Dale Mosquito trying to take Wade's horse's bridle off at that point. And what's Murraydale without a relay race? It involves one rider, one saddle, two horses, and a really good grip. And what's a race without a moorhead in it? Relay race names in the programs include Jack, Albert, Marvin, Alan, Clay, Clint, and Derek. This was taken in 1982 by Dave Marshall. It looks like the first round of horses is coming in and the saddles are being switched. That's Alan Moorhead coming out to stop. That's Alan Moorhead coming out to stop the rider, which is most likely Marvin. This is Rex Ferguson and Arnold Mackey getting Rex ready to go in 1981. (1989), Wade Wise and Ross Martin are saddling Deacon with Wade preparing to ride. Their competition is a Caton team according to the back of the photo. Wade and Ross put several teams in the relay race. Ross decided Wade looked like he was having so much fun that he would try it. This photo shows the rules of winning, as it is the first one over the finish line on the ground with his saddle. Craig Reeser was a close second, and the photo was taken in 1999. These are the second horses coming in the junior relay race in 2006. Keegan Martin is in the lead and he won, followed by Courtney Link. She was a close second. This is after the same race in 2006, and I like this photo because the dust adds a lot of atmosphere to it. In 2006, Wade challenged riders to a flat race, saying for $25 his horse was the fastest. You can see Alan Moorhead starting the horses. I was a little antsy taking the photo and it's quite far back, so I tried enlarging it and this is what I got. You can see how they started at least. As far as I can tell, it's Wade, Craig Reeser, Callie Yershenko, Joanne Lawrence, John Beyerbach, and Courtney Link. This is the end of that flat race. It's an enlargement because as they got closer, I forgot about taking pictures. Joanne and Wade are pretty close. This is Wade and this is Joanne. Joanne won the race and her dad Eric later asked Joanne who she beat and she replied she didn't know, some old guy. And when Eric found out that it was Wade, he said, "He's not old." For years, a powwow was held for entertainment. This photo was supplied by Marge. It looks like the Murraydale trees in the background, so I identified it as Murraydale. From the Jasper Centre, this photo was dated 1923, with the man in the headdress identified as John Pieper. This photo was provided by Florence Sando, found in her mother Ida Chadwick's collection. These are fairly self-explanatory. Helen took these in 1984 when Murraydale celebrated its 75th anniversary. And now for the Stampede part. This is the earliest photo I found of riding rough stock at Murraydale. I believe the C stands for Clarence. The first riding contests at Murraydale were most likely impromptu, the challenge of riding the longest or the wildest animal. It was organized by the community members from 1909 until 1927. From 1928 until 1937, Dave Perrin was the producer of the show. From 1938 to 1948, it was produced by the Armstrong boys, also known as Bert and John. 1949 to 1950, it was the responsibility of the Maple Creek Calf Club. In 1951, the Farwell Ball and Roping Club took over and they had the show until 1981. From 1982 to the present, the Murraydale Stampede and Picnic Society has organized the show.
Pipeline Creek water in bucket. It'll be a dandy. Ashton Carson.
Stay on.
Lift and work. Missing a set of scarps or spurs. Good blow. We get a score from our judges here in a few moments. Rodeo Secretary's office over there. The Rodeo Secretary would be happy to pay ground money. One of the last of the dying traditions here at Murraydale in the Border Country Rodeo Circuit, and that is ground money.
There's prize money put up for every event, and we hope to have 4 places in the event because that's what we have designated the money for. But if only one person rides, the rest of the money is split up among the contestants, and it's called ground money. Thanks, it's saying thanks for coming and giving us a show. It's come a long way from riding a cow across the open prairie to a rodeo with all the major events. Murraydale's claim is 100 years of continuous events. The minutes show that some years were unsure of a performance. In 1932, it was suggested that a ball game be held instead, until Dave Perrin and George Carson offered to put on a show. In 1951, the organization wondered if they could hold anything due to hoof and mouth disease. An inquiry to the provincial vet received a letter allowing it to be safe. In 1973 and 1974, a two-day event was held. 1977 was also 2 days, with the Saturday performance being an all-girl rodeo. The Sunday performance that year was a Little Britches rodeo. Marge doesn't know anything about this photo and didn't know if it was worth saving, but I did. By this time, the chutes and corrals had been built, with the chutes at the west end where the catch pens are now. This is Murraydale in 1954. Nice rails along the side. The Murraydale Rodeo in 1955 with Dudley Moorhead as the pickup man. The back of this photo says Dudley is the pickup man and he's riding Slicker. I like the nice floral tribute in the foreground, and I wonder if they cushioned the rocks. Bob Southwood in 1956. He couldn't remember who the pickup man was, but I'd say it's Bob Doonan. This is after the rodeo in 1956. I've always known this as Pete Knight on Midnight, and this one as Casey Tibbs on Steamboat. But they really are Francis and Marjorie Perrin. That's my mother and her sister. This photo from Harvey Peters has been encapsulated by David Stewart at the Esplanade Archives. It shows the 50th anniversary in 1959. The minutes indicate that this is the first time they solicited trophies from local businesses. Elsie Galbraith has video footage of the roping contest, but says it's fairly dark. She remembers the horse statue trophies given out to the participants. It's interesting to note the Wednesday date of the show. Murraydale was held on Wednesdays, as the town people had Wednesday afternoons off. It wasn't until 1966 that the Farwell Roping Club asked that the rodeo be held on Sunday. For years now, it's understood that Murraydale will be on the second Sunday in July. This is the photo from the poster. Harvey says he knows many of the faces. This trophy lives in the rodeo room at the Jasper Centre. It's the calf roping trophy won by Harry Knights in 1959, donated in memory of L.R. Forbes. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, a man named Everett Baker worked for the Sask Wheat Pool promoting cooperatives. As well as putting on slideshows, he carried a camera with him and recorded many photos of southwestern Saskatchewan. His 10,000 slides are housed with the Saskatchewan Historical and Folklore Society. In 2007, some of the photos were selected for publications in this book. Many of you may be familiar with it as it has many photos of residents in and around East End, Clayton, Robsart, Gardenhead, and Mancota. As well as a calf roper taken at Murraydale in 1959. And these young ladies were captured watching the rodeo in 1959. I haven't been able to identify these calendar girls yet, but I've shown several people. A copy of this book is also in our library. An anthropologist, John W. Bennett, collected information in the area but disguised names and places. He calls the town of Maple Creek Jasper. His black and white slides have been sent to the Esplanade Archives, and David Stewart was kind enough to share them with me. This book was published in 1969 with the photos taken in 1963. This photo was taken from the booth area. David thinks the little blonde boy down there is his brother John, and I'm sure someone can recognize other people. The rodeo in 1963. and again in 1963. This is Harold Wise, my father, leaning against the car. So that means that the lady in front of the car should be Frances Wise, my mother. Mom often took photos of us dressed up for special occasions, and I was sure Murraydale would have been one of them. I asked her, but all we found was a photo of my brother Wade and I ready for a parade in Maple Creek in May 1963. But Wade was wearing a hat like the child in front of Frances. This crowd photo has lots of distinctive faces. Edwin Perrin's hat is a giveaway, as is Roy Perrin's nose. Anyone else you recognize? The little girl, right here, the little girl wearing the hat matches exactly the one I was wearing in Mom's photo. So I did make the slideshow after all. 1963. I think there was as many people in the arena as there was outside. I was hoping someone would recognize this calf roper. I know it's not Ross Pollock. As he said, he rode a roan horse. Ross won the competition that year and still has the buckle. It's also not Ken Wright who did rope that year. He says he never had a hat or a breast collar like that. It's also not Reg Resnishenko who placed in the event as well. He told me he would never have rolled his sleeves up. So personally, I think it looks like Harold Gold. Bob Doonan, Johnny Armstrong, and Albert Moorhead. This photo cropped up several times in various places. And often when I would show it to people, they would recognize Johnny's horse before they would recognize any of the riders. Niels Barreau published this book in 1975 from information he collected in 1966 and 67. He mentions the help he received from John Bennett. I'm sure you'll recognize some faces here as well. This photo was taken from Indian White, so I'm presuming it has a 1966 or 67 vintage. It's fantastic the way his face is framed by his legs. This one was taken from Indian White as well. Don't know the date of this one. It was found in the rodeo room at the Jasper Center, but it's definitely Murraydale. This is July 9th, 1964. Murraydale was a big event in our household. These are the Wise boots, polished and ready for Murraydale. They belong to Randy, Wade, Connie, Francis, and Harold. I remember Dad's boots being blue on top. This photo of Bill Gilchrist is in the rodeo room at the Jasper Center. And the same pickup men, Johnny Armstrong, Bob Doonan, and Albert Moorhead in 1965. Guy Murphy, riding in 1968. This is from the Galbraith collection. The early minute book regularly records that work needed to be done on the corrals. They were always buying posts for it. In 1967, as their centennial project, the Farwell Ball and Roping Club constructed new chutes and catch pens. They moved the chutes from the west end to the east end. In 1978, when this photo was taken, they still looked pretty good. A 1978 photo taken by George Galbraith, and he likes it because he said Hereford bulls can buck. Gerald Shockey as pickup man in 1978. And these photos were taken by George Galbraith. That would be the beginning of the rodeo. The grand entry.
been warming this pony up for the last 2 days riding around here. Pretty quick, he's going to take a shot at high gear. Turns the corner and points it for home. Come on, Carter, let's point that high gear. Keep working, find your hat. Oh, we got high gear!
Barrel racing has always been popular at Murraydale because it's fairly easy to obtain a horse to do so. Obviously popular, we have a large number of entrants in it, even starting with the younger ones, and they are the real crowd pleaser because they come, they get their start at Murraydale, and they bring their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and their uncles to come and watch them, so that's great.
I've heard about Murraydale Rodeo quite often. However, my grandson has ridden in it for the last 2 years, and so I made a point of being out here this year.
Grant Shapley, Donald Gray, and Wilkes Abbott discussing strategy for the wild pony race. And Kent Harrigan and Wilkes Abbott getting ready to ride a pony. The ponies look small, but I remember lots of them getting the best of the kids. Here's Danny Udall, deep in thought. This looks like a casualty from some rough stock event like mutton busting. The bullfighter in this one is Jay Porter, and the pickup man was identified as Jim Trout. And Wilkes Abbott doesn't look in a good position to win the rodeo this year. Not all the riding action was in the arena or on real livestock. Roy Martin in 1981 on the mechanical bull. Ken Humphreys told me that this was his machine. And here's Randy Wise on his way out or off of the mechanical bull. Colin Orr on a bull in 1982. Vance Kegley is the bullfighter. Kids Wild Pony Race in 1982. Rodney Perrin on a cow in 1983. In 1984, Murraydale celebrated its 75th anniversary. A parade was held around the track with some special guests. This photo was from Marge Boyer, and it's the Medicine Hat Highland Pipe Band. Following the band was Hank Noland, Edwin Perrin, and Albert Moorhead. Several dedicated people rounded up a wagon train that started at Elkwater and ended at Murraydale. They participated in the parade, so these are the wagons passing the booth, and that's Graham Hobbs, who was the wagon boss. This photo was taken by Elsie and shows the wagon train at Fort Walsh. It's Doug Madsen in the lead with Harold Perrin driving the wagon, with an Arrett wagon following. And looking at the photos, some of them just begged to be included. I love this one of Ernest and Harold Perrin, two brothers, eating their beans during a wagon train lunch break. This photo was taken by Frank Weber. Back to the parade with Rodney Perrin riding his milk cow. One of the special events in 1984 at the 75th anniversary was old-time bronc riding. This is Stan Perrin in Angora chaps saddling his mount in the arena. And it looks like Glenn Bowles on the pickup horse. There he is. And this photo shows that Stan is using a double hold bareback rigging. So it was definitely old time. Old time bronc riding. Saddle bronc riding this time. Gerald Sanderson is saddling the horse, and I think that's Francis Walker preparing to ride. Notice the coat they had over his eyes prior to saddling. We'd like to celebrate the heritage of Murraydale by beginning our rodeo with tradition, the way they used to do it before there were ever corrals. One horse, one rider, they blindfolded it. Here it is, called by Art Unsworth.
When Murraydale first began, it was in this great big amphitheater that you see before you, not the beautiful new set of corrals that are here today, replacing the corrals that dated back to 1967 when the last major change was done. One of the things that you see Robert doing, he's working down there by himself on the ground. He's going to blindfold this horse. You take your coat, shirt, blanket, whatever you got.
I know.
Throw it over the horse's head so that he's kind of blindfolded and they don't get to fighting nearly as much. Now Robert's not using a bronc riding saddle here. He's using his ordinary riding saddle. Comes complete with the lariat and everything.
Art, do you know who the flagman is?
Robert drawing his cinches up tight. Now in the old time bronc riding, they saddled him out in the center of this amphitheater. And there was kind of two loose rules. One, you either rode him to the bush or till you got him kind of broke to ride. Robert's mounted. I'm giving him the buck shank here, and John and Dean are going to jerk that off and turn him loose. Let's welcome Murraydale as we start the next century here. Robert Udall in the old time bronc riding. Anything goes.
As Dean gets dumped off, he's flopping the coat.
Now you see, he's not riding with a flank strap on this horse, and it's one of the differences. People that don't understand rodeo as well always question the cruelty of the flank strap. The flank strap is there for a consistent bucking. It does not injure the animal, it simply encourages them to do what they do so naturally. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Udall, our old-time bronc riding in the beginning of Murraydale.
Helen Gilchrist shared this photo. I'm not sure if she took it. It's Kelly Lacoste down here near the ground, and Jeff Watson rescuing a rider. The rider is unidentified, but I recognize Stan Perrin on the chute, and his daughter Jerry is up in the booth watching. The banner says 1985, so that's the date of the photo. More old-time bronc riding in 1985. This is Sonny Southwood. He himself was not a spring chicken at the time. I don't know who this rider is, but the pickup man is Alan with a mustache. I love the chaps. His ride looks good, but just to show you that not all the horses were docile, I included this one of Rex Ferguson. I'm not sure how it ended because there was no further photos, so you'll have to ask Rex. For several years, Murraydale ran a queen contest. The first queen was Eileen Hallion. The last year the contest was run, it was a king contest, and the participants were Cecil Bainton and Bob Doonan, with Cecil taking the honors. This photo here is from 1986. It's Luann Wise accepting the Princess Award from Marg Perrin. Luann Wise moved from rodeo princess to riding a cow in 1987. That's Johnny Yershenko in the red shirt. She looks good in this photo, but it must have been 5 seconds into the ride because she remembers only lasting about 6 seconds. This is Wade blasting out of the chute in 1989. I included it because the horse lost its footing and Wade did the Murraydale twist until he lost his footing. But it's a good thing he got out of there. The ever popular calf scramble. Lots of enthusiasm. In 1989, the committee hosted a greased pig contest, but nobody remembers who won it. The chutes built in 1967 could only last so long, so in 1992 the Society ordered and installed new metal chutes. Carson Dowks was very instrumental in their construction, and several volunteers helped to set them up. So we can see Wade Wasillo riding a cow with the new metal chutes in the background. This shot was taken in 2006 of a bareback rider. Actually, down in the corner is Brady Bertram in the dirt. The rails around the arena are vintage, or maybe not. They look old. But I've gone up into the bush with Uncle Stan, a tape measure and a chainsaw, to find an appropriate replacement. The present committee is looking to update the corrals and arenas, so these posts may have seen their last. This is Ross Kreutzer making an exhibition ride in 2006. Fred Blakely and John Beyerback are picking up for him. Ross told me recently he rode his first bronc at Murraydale, and for those of you who don't know what that led to, Ross won the $50,000 at the Calgary Stampede in 2001 and the Canadian Saddle Bronc Championship in 2006. This is an ad for a Tide commercial. They're up right now, but once they get dragged in that dirt. Murraydale can't run without its dedicated volunteers. This is Melvin Moorhead greasing the gate of the stripping chute at a work day in 2006. This was taken the same evening from the announcer's booth. Look at the grass. So that brings us to 2008 and Murraydale's 100th event. In honor of the event, we designed these commemorative pins. We also had a Montana silversmith buckle made, and if you want to see one, have a visit with Bill Saville. I'm sure he's wearing one. The day was very well documented with digital with digital technology, Art Unsworth collected over 1,000 photos from various photographers. He showed up at our house and transferred them to my computer so they wouldn't all be in one location. I only have a few here, so I won't keep you for another hour, but there are some spectacular photos of the wonderful day. We actually started the day the night before when we hosted a heritage barrel race. Criteria was non-professional, slightly older, hadn't barrel raced in a long time, and wanted to have fun. The idea came from Vanya Shanko, who told her girls she would barrel race at Murraydale's 100th. She had a blast, as you can see by this photo. She even bought shiny pants for the occasion. But she won the event. But only by 1/100th of a second. This is the food booth run by Chris Ferguson. The photo must have been early in the day, as I never saw it with less than 2 long lineups of people. The credit union sponsored pancake breakfasts, and after that, Chris and her crew cooked all day long. They made something like 1,500 hamburgers. A parade around the track started at noon. It was led by Laura Lee Major, the Maple Creek Rodeo Queen. Her princess wasn't there, so she asked Keegan to ride with her. He is the great-grandson of Edwin Perrin, who led the parade in 1984. Behind them is the Northwest Mounted Police recreation that did a skirmish line demonstration during the intermission. The Carson family held a family reunion that day and rode in the parade. The local 4-H clubs were invited to ride in the parade. This is the Maple Creek Multiple 4-H Club with Dave Elliott and his team, and sitting beside him is Bill Saville. A rough stock event, as many older cowboys were heard to say that they were going to ride a bronc at the 100th. This is Derek Moorhead in the heritage section, and he was also the stock contractor for the day. Heritage bareback rider Bob Maines on one of his horses. He qualified for a re-ride when his first horse fell with him. Then he rode his first bull for about 30 seconds in the chute, but they were all in the chute, until they gave him another one to actually ride in the arena, and he was also the bullfighter for the day. Rodney Perrin watched his Uncle Stan ride a bronc at the 75th anniversary and vowed he was going to ride at the 100th, so he rode a bareback and a bull. He said he had so much fun, he thinks we should have the event again. This is Rodney having fun, and Wade Wise looks like he has the same feeling. He was also a heritage bronc rider and won the event. Lovely photo from Lou Parsonage of all the pickup men, just like in the old photos. They are Travis Erickson, Fred Blakely, and John Beyerback, all riding sorrel horses. The stock was good, and we did have qualified rides, but not this one. John Bowie captured this rider parting ways with his bronc. And a good thing, because it might have taken a long time for both of them to come down again. Adam Gilchrist getting a little air as well. Another fantastic photo. We collected photos from John Bowie, Gary Houston, Darcy Dietrich, Chris Unsworth, Caroline Knights, Anya Perrin, Lee Perrin, Lou Bevan, and Skyline Photography. A nice shot of the announcer's booth taken by Gary. The intermission featured the Northwest Mounted Police skirmish line demonstration. I knew they were going to be loud, and I even knew when it was happening, but I sure jumped the first time they fired. Lou Parsonage shared this photo. At meetings to organize this event, stories would often come up about past happenings at Murraydale. I said I remembered Margie Perrin in the hide race and how dirty she came out of it. She said to me, "Let's do it this year. You get the horse and I'll ride the hide." I couldn't refuse, really, being several years younger than her 70, but we did practice so I wouldn't seriously damage her, and it paid off as we were able to beat the competition we lined up for ourselves. I asked Derek Robertson and Clay Moorhead, so there's Derek and Clay, and that's myself and my Aunt Margie ready to ride the hide. Another shot of the chutes. This series of next photos isn't very flattering for Bobby, but it's pretty good entertainment. The steer got up first, and the rest did follow eventually. This is Rodney Perrin having more fun on his prize-winning bull ride. And just to show you how respectful we are, there they are, bowing to each other. This is the lineup for the calf scramble. And we had some barrel racing. And the old booth site is always a popular place to watch the races. There were 4 teams in the relay race, and this one was the most interesting. Don't they look like a good team? That's Clay Moorhead, Josh Stinger, and Larry Grossman. Josh didn't have a lot of control on the first corner, but he didn't fall off on that side. He slipped off the other side with not a lot of grace, but still enjoyed himself. There he is falling off on the other side. This is Robert Gordon with his lean, mean racing machine, and Craig Reeser winning with lots of enthusiasm. That's Derek Robertson waiting to help him stop. This is the beginning of the flat race. They had a bit of a bad start as there were 8 horses and not everyone was paying attention to Alan the starter. But from the angle of the photo you can see that they had an uphill start. This is just past the old food booth. Wade Wise is in the lead, Callie Yershenko and Jelaine Geiger. I like this photo because it shows the horses are on the same stride. And this is the end of the race with Wade still in the lead. You can see Ryan Newby in the picture as well. This photo was taken in 1979. I don't think the pot of gold really ended at the gate to Murraydale, especially if you talk to the many faithful members of the Murraydale Stampede and Picnic Society. But I do know that a shower at the end of the day is always welcome to wash off the Murraydale dust.
If we